We've all heard of e-commerce. Dropshipping is one thing that I'm sure everyone trying to make it online has at least thought of trying.
Damn! Everybody gotta have a dream.
And it's for a good reason. E-commerce has changed the way we view selling. It's an industry that has changed a ton of people's lives, creating some of the figures we look up to. But there is one thing we don't see or think of. The backbone of all this. One thing that every e-commerce educator mentions.
Shopify.
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 Your Shopify.
Shopify.com. Shopify.
How did it come to exist? And to understand how this accidental founder rewrote the future of e-commerce, we have to go back to a childhood that was far from typical. Tobias Lütke was born in 1981 in Koblenz, Germany, a small town tucked along the Rhine River. His family had entrepreneurship in their blood. His grandmother had run a business, and both his parents had done their own ventures. But they didn't hand Tobias anything. Tobias had to earn money by solving real problems, and only then would he negotiate payment with his parents. At school, he struggled, not because he wasn't smart, but because he thought most of it was pointless. By the age of 11, Tobias had already begun modifying computer games and rewriting code on his Schneider CPC. By 12, he was building software tools for fun. School didn't stand a chance, and when it finally came time to make a decision, he dropped out to do something that was entirely normal in Germany: an apprenticeship. It would turn out to be one of the most important decisions of his life. But the next big shift would come from love, and it would take him across an ocean. Tobias had always dreamed of moving to the US, like so many who saw it as the land of opportunity. But getting there wasn't easy. So when he met a Canadian girlfriend, he realized Canada might be a smarter gateway. In 2002, Tobias moved to Ottawa, Ontario, with his girlfriend, now wife, Fiona McKean. But his arrival in Canada wasn't glamorous. Despite being a skilled programmer, he couldn't get a job. His qualifications didn't match Canadian credentialing systems. So there were two options: either go through a painful process of revalidation or start a business of his own. He chose the latter because, as he said later, he figured it wouldn't succeed anyway, so there was no point in worrying about legal paperwork right away. And so, like many young immigrants trying to figure out how to survive, Tobias asked a simple question: what can I sell? Germany had long winters. Snowboarding was huge. Canada also snowy. So Tobias decided to sell snowboards online. He and his partners launched a small business called Snowdevil. But when it came time to build the store, Tobias ran into a problem. All the existing e-commerce solutions, like Yahoo Stores or Magento, were clunky, inflexible, and expensive. They were made for big businesses, not scrappy startups, so he built his own. Using Ruby on Rails, a brand new programming framework at the time, Tobias wrote the custom backend and frontend from scratch. And as soon as the snowboard shop went live, other small business owners started asking, "What are you using to run your store?" It was in that moment Tobias realized the real product wasn't the snowboards. It was the tool he built to sell them. But even then, it wasn't obvious that this side project could become a billion-dollar company. That realization came only after Tobias ran into yet another obstacle, one faced by nearly every entrepreneur on Earth. Tobias wanted to grow the snowboard business. He calculated that $20,000 would help with inventory and marketing, but when he went to the bank to ask for a small business loan, he was denied, not because his business wasn't viable, but because banks don't trust small, unproven ventures. He ended up borrowing the money from friends and family, but the moment stuck with him. He saw firsthand how hard it was for small businesses to access capital, tools, or even a reliable platform to sell online. And that's when the idea hit. What if he could build a platform that solved these problems for millions of people? In 2006, Shopify was born, But it wouldn't be long before Tobias had to give up something big to make it work. Tobias wasn't trying to be a CEO. In fact, he actively resisted the role at first. Shopify had 3 co-founders: Tobias, Daniel Wynand, and Scott Lake. Scott was originally the CEO. But after just a year, Scott left the company, and Tobias had to step in. That meant transitioning from code to capital, from developer to decision-maker. He hated the idea at first.
Then I was struggling with this transition. I was CTO, which was a job I really wanted, and people wanted me to be the CEO. I went through a year and a half of trying to hire a CEO. I had one more conversation with John about potentially taking the role. And the final advice, which then completely changed my opinion about it, was that he told me that, he said, "Hold on, Toby, we don't want you to be the CEO because we think you have all the answers." He said, "We want you to be the CEO because we think you can get the answers when you need them." Mm-hmm. And that completely moved the entire problem from of having this job away from something I already had to be into a challenge that I could that I could succeed at.
He began studying the world's best business leaders, teaching himself how to be the kind of CEO he never thought he'd need to be. In 2010, Shopify hit a major milestone. It became profitable, and from there, it exploded. But success came with its own dark side. By 2017, Shopify had gone public, was growing rapidly, and had a reputation as one of the best platforms for entrepreneurs. But that same year, a short seller named Andrew Left from Citron Research released a video calling Shopify a pyramid scheme.
But let's put it this way. Shopify says they have 500,000 customers, websites. Of the 500,000, we know 2,500 are Shopify Plus, which are big merchants probably really enjoying the Shopify platform, to give them credit. And let's just say another 25,000 is Shopify Advanced. What this story is about is who is the other 470,000 Shopify users. And that is what has never been discussed on Wall Street beforehand. And as I show and I prove, these are people who have bought into become a millionaire at home, get rich quick, and promises that completely violate every FTC rule imaginable. First of all, they're violating the Business Opportunities Act because they're selling business opportunities. They're not providing websites to stores. They're telling people you can be an entrepreneur. Second of all, is they're making claims that they can't back up. On the Shopify website itself, are you ready to be a millionaire? How many millionaires were created today? A sample resignation letter to give to your boss once you make enough money on Shopify to quit. Just amazing that this would be an $11 billion company. Those are all FTC violations. And lastly, Shopify is able to support this business through what they call their partner program. And these partners are bloggers, influencers, and they are compensated by Shopify, and it's not disclosed anywhere. And that also is a major FTC violation.
Shopify's stock dropped over 11% in a day, wiping out millions in market value. It was the first major reputational crisis the company had faced. Tobias addressed the accusations head-on. In a blog post, defended the company's ethics and doubled down on building trust with users. Shopify not only recovered, it surged, but this wouldn't be the last time Tobias had to draw a hard line between platform freedom and public perception. By 2024, over 5 million businesses had used Shopify. From bedroom startups to multi-million-dollar empires, the platform had powered over $230 billion in total sales. Shopify didn't just become a company, it became an industry. An entire ecosystem of app developers, store designers, course creators, fulfillment partners, and marketing agencies grew around it. Some people went from unemployed to millionaires in just a few years, all because Shopify gave them a way to start. And at the center of it all was Tobias Lütke, the quiet coder from Koblenz, who never planned to be a businessman, but ended up building the rails for modern e-commerce. Tobias once said, "Most people overestimate what they can do in a year, and underestimate what they can do in a decade." He's lived that truth, from snowboards to a software empire, from being denied a $20,000 loan to building a company worth over $130 billion. His story is proof that innovation doesn't always start with ambition. Sometimes it starts with a problem you just need to solve, and in solving it, you end up unlocking opportunity for millions more.